Yeah, I'ma kill you in a second if I have to. Use my mind as a weapon when I blast through. Put the basics in the base.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 20 of the PT Performance Podcast. Got the co-host with us as usual. We've got Nate.
Good evening, everybody. Nate. Thank you for joining us.
Richo over there, rocking the Gold Coast winter.
Yeah, how we going?
It is spring now, I guess, so, could lose a layer. All right, now we've got a special guest with us tonight. We've got Dan Jolly all the way out from Western Australia. Dan, thanks for chiming in tonight, mate.
My pleasure, mate. Glad to be here.
What time is it? What time is it in Perth? Is it like super late or super early?
No, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It's early.
Behind. Yeah, 2 hours behind.
Really? Now, it could be because he's so far away, but every now and again there is a slight delay on Dan's responses. So he's not a slow thinker. If you do notice a bit of a pause, it just seems to be catching up a bit. So, guys, let's get into it. Dan, 20-something years in the industry, mate. A bit of an academic, time on the tools as well. Just give us a quick intro and a bit of a background about yourself, mate.
Yeah, no problem. So I started not doing a Cert 3 and 4. I went to uni, did a sports science degree, and then, like a lot of people, didn't know what to do with it. So did some corporate health stuff, started doing some personal training, which I loved, and did that till I was 30. I was a full-time PT. Then I went back to do some extra study. So did a master's degree, did some coaching with some sporting clubs over here in Perth. And now I've started a PhD and getting a bit more involved in the fitness industry again, which is what my research is involved with.
What's your PhD on, Dan?
So the field is educational psychology.
Yeah.
But specifically what we're looking at is the sources of information personal trainers use, how that influences their knowledge, and then the critical thinking skills
Oh, wow.
of personal trainers and students.
That's pretty decent.
Oh, wow. That's epic.
Fucking hell, spot on for what we're trying to do here, guys.
Yeah.
I can actually tell you where most of us get our information from: cereal boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. No dispute there.
Gluten-free cereal boxes, though, Nate?
And the vegan one.
Vegan, gluten-free cereal boxes.
Cashew cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys. Today, while trawling through the old Facebook, a link to a story came up, and it was an article written by DJ. And obviously, as soon as I saw that it had his name on it, I knew it'd be something entertaining as well as pretty legit and to the point. So we'll put a link to that article at the end of the show on the YouTube and iTunes, etc. So I want everyone that pays attention to the show to get on and look at it, and it'll make a lot more sense as to what we're on about today. But in a nutshell, Dan, where possible, tell us a little bit about that article you put together.
Yeah, sure. So this, the idea for the article came about after having a beer with my mate, Dr. Bill Sakala, who's another sort of long-time fitness industry colleague, and discussing the people who think they're experts and maybe are not. So really the nature of like, what is a fitness expert and who can we really trust as an expert, and what are the characteristics of those experts. So the way they might look for information, or where they get their information from, or the way they treat other information is really useful. So the article was talking about that. So about which PTs you can trust and which you can't trust as far as their sources of information, and then how they interpret that information to make sure that they're getting the right material out of that content.
Nice. So, in it, I won't ruin it because I want everyone to read it, because obviously I'll butcher it. But by reading it, they'll get your full work in its entirety. But essentially, for those that pay attention and been listening to the show, a big part of it is, like we always talk about, that just because someone has a particular look about them, or a particular amount of followers, or some sort of social media engagement, doesn't necessarily mean they know their shit. And likewise, some people who have none of that also don't know their shit. So there's a bit of everything. So what the article really shows is, like, where are they getting it from? And as Dan said, this is what your PhD is about. Yeah, is where do personal trainers, you guys, get your information from, and how is that information then utilized in your scope? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
And
how,
we found that, yeah, it's really very, sorry, Matt.
that's right. How far into your PhD are you at the moment?
So just writing up now, mate. So the plan is to be finished. Yeah, almost done. We're hoping 6 months or so. And it should be all submitted.
Oh, wow. I really actually look forward to reading that. That'll be extremely helpful for our industry.
Yeah, cool. Well, the article today was a bit of a sneak peek. We haven't had anything published yet, but I allude to some of the stuff that we're publishing soon. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some results ready to show shortly.
Yeah, perfect. I just want to, I do have to admit that I have been a bit time poor today and I did skim over it. But I did see one thing I definitely want to bring up with you, Dan, that I did see is obviously when you're talking about cardio, I don't know if I've talked about it on this before, but one of the big things I hate, especially with coaches now, is that it almost seems to be a bragging point that they can get people looking good with zero cardio. And I absolutely hate that. Like, I absolutely hate that.
Right.
And I think I hate the fact that the word gets shortened to cardio, because I think it takes away from the value of what it actually is, which is cardiovascular health and fitness.
Absolutely.
And I know that you, I did see that you mentioned a bit on that. So what's your take on sort of is that involved in the article at all, or did you go more into the types of cardio that people are researching?
Look, I didn't get into the nuts and bolts of it at all, because what we're really talking about is the psychology of it.
Okay, yeah.
But like, it's a really good point, because what it demonstrates is the bias that trainer shows. And the bias is they don't like cardio, they don't want to do it, they don't want to learn about it, they want to lift weights with their clients.
Yeah.
Because they enjoy that more, and they think their clients will enjoy that more. And it's funny to hear the arguments if you ask a trainer, you know, the best way to lose weight, the ones that like lifting weights will say it's weights training, and the ones that like doing cardio will say it's cardio. And the reality is, you know, it almost doesn't matter, you know, as long as they're doing it, as long as they're sustaining it, as long as they're getting the as far as the weight loss
regulation,
as far as weight loss goes, they need an energy deficit. As far as building their aerobic fitness, they need a certain heart rate. You know, like that's, as long as you're getting that, that's the key, really.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I did read that you, in that article that we are talking about, you did mention how everyone there's been a big trend towards everyone saying high intensity is the only one that does anything, and nothing else matters at the moment. But
that's right.
Is that again, the same with the coaches bragging about that they can get people ready with no cardio? Do you think that's just the same thing? It's sort of just a shitty trend that's caught on?
Yeah, I think so. It's and part of it is, I guess, the way the rest of the industry has changed, right? The way we've seen like CrossFit and F45 and that type of training come along with a preference towards higher exercise intensities.
Yeah.
Which is great, you know, because a higher intensity for the person that can tolerate it is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
In terms of the outcome, you know, if that's an appropriate way to achieve their outcome. But that preference towards high intensity, if that's not the best outcome, or if that's not like the safest way to achieve that outcome, that's where I get frustrated, because again, it's our personal preferences. You know, I don't like running, but I like using ropes, or I like using a bike, or, you know, I like doing HIIT training. So we'll do that.
Let's be real. Let's be honest about it. The biggest thing about why those modules or all those types of training are more popular is because they look much better on Instagram than someone sitting a steady pace at 30 minutes on a treadmill.
Yeah.
You know, that's 30 minutes of 14-second stories.
Yeah.
Pretty fucking boring 30 minutes. Whereas 30 minutes of ropes and kettles and sleds and burpees and high pulls and stuff. Okay, that looks like a workout.
Yeah. And in your PhD, Dan, do you go much on, like, with the psychology of social media and the influences that has had on people's, I guess, psychology as to who's putting out good information or what's good information?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is explore the types of sources that people use, going into like examples of individual sources and examples of different types of social media is probably a different type of research. So that's beyond our scope. But what we have been asking trainers is where they get their information from. That's one of the things we've looked at, and the option of social media, private websites, magazines, for people who still read magazines, or the big guy at the gym, like those sorts of options, for example.
Just out of curiosity, did they come up much?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yep, like, everything came up all the time. The thing that came up the least in most of the PTs we looked at were like public health campaigns.
Yeah.
Like things like your Find 30 campaigns, or your Eat for Health website, or or like even Australian dietary guidelines, like that sort of stuff. It's so simple, but it's well researched. And it's a good resource for personal trainers, but they tend not to use it.
Yeah.
And I think it goes along with what I just said about the treadmill, because it's not sexy, it's boring. It's a government sponsored program. You know what I mean? It's like, that can't be cool. The government doesn't have abs.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Which is a shame, because if when you sit down and read a document like that, it's a great document and it's well researched, and it's a pretty useful read for a PT.
Do you think, obviously coming from you went to university to do your sports science degree, do you feel like that definitely helped pave the way for you as understanding where you should get your information from? Because I feel like people that do their Cert 3s and 4s, because they haven't gone through the university education, when it comes to articles and research papers, they just don't know how to interpret them. They don't know how to read them properly. They don't know what to look for. So I think they just tend to stay clear of them. Did you look at, sorry, you didn't, because this is a different topic, but I've been university degreed personal trainers as opposed to Cert 3 and 4 personal trainers as to where they get their information from. Because I feel like the university degree guys would probably have a higher tendency towards actual articles and research as opposed to social media and magazines and private websites.
Absolutely, yeah. We're still analysing some of that data, so I won't have. I may not be able to speak to it completely, but what we find is that people with higher levels of qualification use more sources.
Yeah.
So both good and bad sources, they just use a lot more. But the difference there is they can differentiate between the good and the bad, and they can get the right information from sources of any quality. And that really surprised me. I thought somebody with a higher qualification would be a bit more focused, but they're not. They tend to be a bit broader with their sources so far. And be maybe more selective what they get from that source.
Yeah.
I thought also maybe attention span into how long it takes to research something, rather than competency-based, bite-sized information that the Cert 3, Cert 4 typically would experience, versus someone who knows that they've got time on their side and they're not going to be passed based on competency. They're going to be able to show the evidence based research to go with their learning.
Point two. Yeah.
Just thinking on what you just said there, Dan, that sort of would be interesting to me when you do it all, to see whether that they do go for those bad sources, because they sort of have to still keep in touch with what's trending at the moment, so they're able to debunk it when it gets brought up. Because so often clients come in and say, I saw such and such say this on Facebook. And I guess if you're only getting the good information, you're not getting caught up in the shitty trends that are coming up. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it as well. Having to sort of just be...
Yeah, I don't know, mate. That's a really good...
Yeah.
Nice one. So let's ask a question again, based on what you've researched and what you've come across so far, Dan, and also what we come across in our day-to-day stuff, is that, and I'm reading from my notes here, which is why I've turned to the side a bit. Mm-hmm. How does a PT avoid the trend or avoid following the trend of being one of these experts, one of these skim reading, bro science style experts? How do they avoid the trap of that?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing to do is recognise the extent of your qualification and to recognise what a Cert 4 gets you compared to maybe a diploma. I mean, I'd argue that somebody with a degree isn't an expert either. You know, there's a million people with sports science degrees, you know, but there's not many of them that are, you know, making really big bucks or working in professional sport or anything like that. So, you know, that's a different level of expertise again. So I think having an awareness that your Cert 3 and Cert 4 is a starting point, you know, and I know you agree with me on this, Chris. It's your first step of the process, and you need to continue to learn and develop from that. Whether CECs are the best way to do that, if you're Fitness Australia registered, that's up to you. Whether it's a diploma or a degree, or you know, surrounding yourself with good people or experts from other fields. Yeah, that's important. Like, know that you've only just started, and you know, the longer you're in the industry, the more you're going to realise how much you don't know and how much other people do know, and the longer you've been around. Yeah, good. I mean, we've done a couple episodes where we talk about, you know, things that we would recommend as the next step of your education once you've got your Cert 4. We talked about mentors and business mentors, as well as practical PT related mentors, all that sort of stuff. So it seems to be the general theme is obviously your Cert 4 is your keys, your P plate. You can now drive by yourself, which is exciting and great, but you still need to be able to educate yourself further based on what your niche is and based on what your understanding is and all that sort of stuff. So it's really cool that we sort of have a similar outlook on that. Nate, you've been really quiet tonight, mate. Are you okay?
Well, can I get a fucking word in? Like, Jesus. Well, I was going to start asking with, like, everybody wants to be an expert without being one. Like, to be called an expert is quite cool, but also to be called an expert for some people is a bit squeamish. Nevertheless, most general population people aren't going to be able to tell the difference between what's good information and what's bad information.
That's right.
How do you suggest someone who is, let's say, in this, wants to maybe set themselves apart or to be a source of like, hey, this person knows what they're talking about. I can kind of go through all this information and go to them and trust I'm going to get at least a sensible answer. How do you suggest people, how do you want them to start to go about getting their information and being better?
Are we talking about trainers or the public?
Yeah, look, screw the public, because no public person is going to listen to us.
Okay.
As far as trainers,
yeah,
how do you want them to be better at what they do and where they get their information from? Rather than where they're getting it from now, where do you want to see it head?
Okay. So there's been a few things that have been really positive changes in the industry, which is the Cert 4's changed and gotten a bit harder. Diplomas are getting a bit more common. Those sorts of things are going to help, but that's a 30-year project. What I'd really like to see for like the new sort of Cert 4 graduate now, somebody who's starting out in the industry, their little niche. Like a personal trainer is a real jack of all trades. You know, we know a bit about nutrition and we know a bit more about exercise and we know how to, you know, communicate with people and motivate them, but we don't do anything really super well. So for every skill a PT has, there's someone that can do it better, but there's maybe not anyone who can do all of it the way a good PT can. So, you know, go, you know, find a really good physio that you can talk to about some physio stuff. Find a, find a sports scientist that you can talk to about their, you know, about some of the strength and conditioning stuff. Find a psych who's willing to talk to you about some of the psych stuff. Find somebody who, read research articles. And if you're not sure what the article means, you can always ask them, hey, can you help interpret this article for me? So when you build that network of people, you learn a little bit off each of them, right? And you end up growing in all those areas. So you're still a jack of all trades, but I think you've got a better understanding of where you sit compared to everyone else, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. Can I take this a step further?
Yep.
Only because most people who are PTs are going to be dealing with, whether they like it or not, they're going to be dealing with general population people.
Yep.
So they're going to be dealing with people who are never going to be athletes, who thought they may have been, but you know, a few shakes short of a sauce bottle, and they're just a bit delusional about the whole thing. For those people,
yeah,
who are general population, have you got sources that you would like to see these trainers starting to get information from now? Because I can tell you right now, if we tell trainers to go out and see sports scientists and stuff, I know about at least 5 trainers that probably can't even spell the word scientist. So good luck.
Yep.
So have we got somewhere where we want to be sending, as far as resources that we can rattle off, especially from your expertise level?
Yeah, don't know. That's a really good question. I would have said a couple of years ago, I would have said, you know, go to Philex and see some of the talks there. But having been to one recently, I don't know if I can say that anymore.
Nah.
Completely changed in the last.
What was wrong with it? What was wrong with it? I'm interested to hear your opinion.
It's a business now.
Oh, I've always thought it was shit. I just want someone else to say it.
So I mean, I'll say it a bit more. Sorry, Manny. Sorry.
Oh no, you're right, dude. I was just saying, in the last 3 years, I've stopped going the last 2, and prior to that, you'd look and go, "Fuck, there's a good speaker," and that guy or girl knows their shit. Now it's like Muppet, Mud, social media, Facebook guru, like that, but they don't have what do you call it? They don't have runs on the board, and they don't have really sweet fuck all time on the tools to speak of, which either shows that Philex are grasping for anything they can have, or these people are selling themselves as something that they're not.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer there is exactly, but I know, for example, I went to a few talks when I was there earlier this year, and I heard 3 people talk about nutrition stuff. Not one of them was a dietitian. And the frustrating thing about that is they don't necessarily understand what the personal trainer's scope of practice is and where that overlaps, or where they need to hand off to a dietitian, or when they need to hand off to a GP. There was a massive disconnect between what Fitness Australia is telling people they need to be doing or not doing, but then what they were also teaching and giving CECs for at Philex. So that was my major concern about that.
Yeah. Solid.
Yeah.
So Philex is not one place. What else you got?
No, Philex is not one. As far as the nutritional stuff goes, I know, my first go-to is always having a look at the Australian Dietary Guidelines and the Eat for Health website. I think is the best resource going around. And my challenge to people who, are quite critical about those sources sometimes is like to sit down and read it and see how much detail is there, and the hundreds of references, and they talk about the quality of all the references. It's an amazing resource, and it's way more than a personal trainer is going to need. You'll never use all the content in there, and it's updated every few years. So for nutrition information, I think that's number one, has to be.
Great, solid tip.
Yeah. For exercise, I think it's a bit more varied, but there's some people sharing some good stuff on social media. If you're following some good people and they're reputable media, I think you can find some great sources there, but you just need to be selective. So I can't necessarily tell you a whole bunch off the top of my head, because I tend not to follow them too much. But when you find one and they're trustworthy and other experts agree, then jump on board. Yeah,
I think that's important too, is see who's agreeing with them, see who's commenting on their posts, see who's referencing or sharing their stuff. That does add credibility to it. I mean, we've already covered this in past. Like, sharing and followers and likes don't fucking mean anything. But if you find someone who's noted as being credible and they're being shared, referenced, and liked by other people that are known as credible, okay, now we're starting to add something up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the one tip I would give you there as well is be conservative. Like, if anybody's trying to change the game completely, and if anyone's claiming, this is the opposite of what you've heard anywhere else, and it's a game changer, it's probably not. Like, it's probably wrong.
It's a pitch. Like, it's page probably 4 of online marketing is be polarizing. Find something that goes against the grain, scream it out really loud, get everyone's attention, and then sell your shit on the back of it. So you're right. If they're making some 6-minute ads, can be done in 3 minutes.
Yep.
It's probably not the guy for you or girl.
Yep, exactly.
Or thing, or
it's not the first time I've adopted 2 genders, is it? Anyways, all right. So moving right along. In your experience, Dan, and the boys, obviously this question goes out to everyone. How long does it take to edge closer to like legitimate expert status?
Look, I hate that word. I'm sorry. I fucking hate that word expert.
Or
Expert.
I just hate the word expert. Like, to me, an expert is someone who has studied solely on one thing. Like, your PhD is on that. That is what you are the expert at. Like, I just fucking hate that word expert. Like, you can know your shit, but like, to me, expert just makes you like, unless you have a PhD on that thing, there's like, to me, there can only be one expert on each thing because they'll have the fucking PhD on that thing.
That's right. Yeah, I reckon you're right, Richo, actually. And the other, I mean, what you'll notice about when you look at what makes an expert and what's not, they're usually not calling themselves the expert.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Usually it's.
Well, let's change. I'll reword the question.
If they're a legitimate expert, they're not. But anyone who's calling themselves a fucking expert or has that in their name or fucking whatever, then you know that they know shit. And because they'll say something like expert nutritionist. Yeah. I'm sorry. Fucking what? In what aspect of it? What aspect of it? What?
Yeah. Like, let me reword. I'll rephrase the question.
I'm an expert in like in muscle gain. Where? How? I fucking hate that word. So rephrase it. So
I'll rephrase it. How long does it take to be really good at shit? to a point where other people think
I'm going to jump in because I think it takes as long as it takes, and the more you do, the more you realize you could be better at it. The expert tag is something that will get used in order to denote that someone has a higher intelligence at this subject than you. Yes, it gets thrown around a fair bit, but the one character trait I believe you're looking for is that someone is really good at what they do, yet they are still trying to get better or learn more, or they are still quite neutral in the way they talk about things with, this is what we know now, this is what we've seen is working at the minute. It does not mean it could not be done better.
Yep.
So I think that's all that matters in terms of someone who knows shit. If they are around that character trait, you at least know you're onto someone who's logical about it and knows that their way is open to being palatable and changed because they don't know everything and what they thought they knew has been changed since. So they've got the mindset of consistently wanting to grow and adapt things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They might be concrete on a few things, like, you know, there might be a few things that we definitively know that this is not going to be good for you. We definitively know that this is not going to be good for you. But we know that right now, this, and this are really good options. Or they take it, they help you break it down. Like, what should I eat, this or this? Well, and they present it to you logically rather than it's absolutely got to be that or absolutely you've got to have this. It's removing all of the emotion out of it and just looking at it from a logical sense.
Yep.
Right.
I really like that last point you raised there about not being so polarizing. Like the one thing you hear, like an academic, if you're talking to a pure scientist, not me, but someone who's been a scientist their whole life, they'll say it depends. You ask them any question, it depends. Well, I'll give you an example. I had a student last year who asked me one day, right, which way do you squat? Do you squat to a box or do you go ass to grass? Like, it's one of those two, right? And I said, well, no, it's not. I'm going to change my squat depending on the person and what adaptation they need and how mobile they are and their injuries and their exercise history. And, like, we could do 20 different types of squat to different depths, to different foot positions, if that's the best for that person. So it depends, and it depends on a million things. And the expert is aware of those things, whereas that kid's not.
That's pretty much if they're not really good at shit, they will have a definitive answer, like exactly like that. Like, this is the only way to squat,
right?
Or this is the only way that's right, or
so that's almost
wrong, right, wrong. Like, a lot of people forget the research at the end of the day, it's still just an average. Like it's still the average of the data. So there are always going to be outliers. So for those outliers, that data is not true.
That's right.
So a lot of people forget that. They go, well, this is what it is. So exactly, just reiterating on what we both said, anyone who's just, this is all that there is and it's black and white, that's fucking it, normally do not know what they're fucking talking about.
Yeah. So there's a good trigger or a good alert point for those listening. If you at any stage as a PT find yourself going, this is the only way to X, this is the only way to Y, then you probably should stop and think, well, is it? You know, and if I shut myself off to other better, worse opportunities, and if you are saying this is the only way or my way is the only way, you know, it'd be almost safe to say your time is numbered as a fitness professional.
That's right.
And the hardest part about all of this is that often the smartest people who are really good to learn from are going to be the hardest people to find because they're not very polarizing, or their strength isn't at marketing themselves on something like social media, which just doesn't mean that they're bad at what they do. It just means sometimes for you as a PT, trying to find someone to go to learn from in the area that you're interested in can take a little bit longer than you think, because they're not always just a click away.
I think,
you know, and that's a good point though, man. It's 2018. They may not be all over social media, but they're not that fucking hard to find if you dig deep enough, you know. And Google, the good old Google machine will help there. And as I was saying to Dan before the show, and we've talked about this, boys, the old no shame social media celebrities are slowly, it's going to take a while, as we talked about earlier also, it's going to take a little while, but slowly they are being pushed aside for people who are going, you know what, fuck it, I'm sick of these idiots. I do know my shit. We have got some great success to share. I'm going to pull the camera out. I'm going to start sharing it. What we need to do is, when we find those people, encourage the fuck out of them to start doing more of this, so that they're easy to find.
Absolutely. Great.
Awesome. So what's next for you, DJ? What do you got on the cards, mate?
Oh, mate, well, I need to write my PhD for the most part. So I've got about 6 months left, and I've done the easy part, and the fun part, which is collecting all the data and talking to trainers and, you know, running a couple of online courses, all those sorts of things. Went to a conference a few weeks ago and presented some of my results. But now I need to write, and yeah, that's pretty much all I've got on the radar for the next few months until, and then once that's out of the way, we'd like to look at how we use what we've developed. So we've got some critical thinking resources for personal trainers, which I'd really like to make use of. But exactly, yeah, I don't know how it'll look yet, but that's in the future. I'd like to do something with that.
Awesome.
how many, just out of curiosity, Dan, how many followers do you have on social media?
On Twitter, I've got about 200.
Good.
Do you have the gram?
The gram, I do, but it's pretty locked down. That's friends and family.
But my point is that this is exactly what's wrong with the industry is that anyone who's actually trying to further their education or trying to get better doesn't have time for all this social media bullshit, and is normally investing the majority of their time into learning more and actually trying to help people. All of these other gurus are doing the bare minimum. They're finding their one claim to fame to be 110% on, and they're focusing all of their time and effort onto gaining more followers. And it's just so difficult because that's unfortunately, that's the way the world's going now, is social media. People Gen Pop aren't trying to, it's too hard for Gen Pop to find the proper experts to listen to because they're bombarded and flooded by all these 3-minute fucking gurus.
Yeah, but it's also not their job. Like, their job is to sit there and be marketed to. So us as PTs, for the longest time, I've always kicked and stopped my feet that people who don't deserve to get the attention get the attention. But that's just because they're taking advantage of the platform. So Absolutely. Unfortunately, The market is the market, and it's not going to change. We're telling PTs where to find experts and what to be good at. If you want to be an expert, you have to take these steps. But if you want to be heard by normal general people and maybe have the following, whatever, you also then have to go ahead and be good at the social stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the time. It's 2018, man. Take it back 40 years, and the same discussion was being had between radio and television. Take it back another 20 years before that, it was fucking standing on soapboxes and radio. Like, it's just, if you don't follow it, then you got yourself to blame. But I hear what you're saying, Richo, for sure. The ones that are like genuinely deep into this are too busy trying to get deeper and all the rest of it. But I guess at the same time, we need to find those guys and girls and just go, hey, listen, get out, get a little bit of your voice out there. You don't have to be obsessed on it. You don't have to, but put some regular content out there and help drown out the Muppets and help give people a place to go and to learn more, because this is where they're consuming it, man. They're consuming it in the palm of their hand. They're not going through the old Britannica encyclopedia to find their references anymore. Now, they might eventually, once they've found the people, are going to point them in the right direction. But until that time, we've got to come to them.
Yeah, or here's a tip as a PT. If you want to try and get more of your information in the hands of more people who need it, get a client who has an Insta following, get them some results, and people are going to go to them for the information and they'll send them to you. Happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I've got a massive following. Richard doesn't have a massive following, but his wife to be and my wife to be, they've got thousands. Like, get them the results. Guys, whoever will go to them for the everything, and then they'll get sent to you. Like, there's a hack.
And you can be the Insta husband taking the photos of, like...
Already am, mate. Already am. If you ever need lessons, you come find me. I'm the king.
But, you know, it's also, it's really hard to sell 10 years of fucking hard work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard to say, you can have this and you can do this.
It's fucking 22 years of hard work.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's right. Yeah, no, exactly right. Yep. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's hard. It's a hard sell. It's not sexy. It's not glamorous. Dan, I mean, you know, months and years of sitting behind books and computer screens isn't as glamorous as 6-minute abs on the beach drinking. I almost said Molotov cocktails. That's what I dropped.
It's 100% wrong.
And look, it's not something that I need to, I don't need to have a massive social media following or anything like that. Like, I've got a face for radio, and, I'm much more suited with the academia and talking to a couple of people than I am talking to 10,000. But what I would like to do is help those people with those big followings make the right decisions about their sources of information. So, I don't mind if somebody else has that audience and uses that audience, but when they're saying the right things and they're coming to people who know more than them to inform those decisions and those conversations, that's the best thing.
And unfortunately, I think that's where the problem lies, is that these people with these enormous followings have only had to do the bare minimum to get there. So they're making ridiculous amounts of cash flow without having to put in any effort. And unfortunately, the majority of those people aren't actually out there to help people. That's not their number one goal. Their number one goal is to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. So unfortunately, they probably just see it as a waste of their time, which is ridiculous. But coming to people like you who could actually help them make a difference and actually help, do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely,
actually use it for good. And I think that's where it falls down, is if they are extremely good at the other end of it, they don't actually have to get better at this end. But like, I'm very much the same as yourself. I have a head for radio. So unfortunately, it is not going to help me. Not going to help me on social media. So I have to get good at the other end of it. But at the same time, I want to be better at the other end of it, because I just want to help people as much as I can, which is why you probably see that MNU, like, just always got to be learning, always got to be getting better. But unfortunately, the trend seems to be people, what's the bare minimum I can know to make the X amount most of cash, is what tends to be
my thoughts on that is,
now.
My thoughts on that is replicate what the Muppets are doing in terms of their marketing approach and fill it with good quality content, the general public will follow. They follow and again, respectfully, they follow the flash and the noise and the shiny shit, right? What content comes back of it is what they're sold on. Like you could sit there and do the same flashy, shiny shit and give them legit content. And I guarantee you it'll be consumed. It'll be picked up and they'll actually use that and benefit from it. The challenge is guys like us, and I'm learning, this is something that I've had to step out of my comfort zone, is to go out there and go, hey, shiny shit over here, but look, now read this. And they're like, oh, shiny shit. Oh, well, fuck, actually, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Then it's harder for them now to go back to the hollow stuff because they've got this better resource from the same bait, for want of a better term. Yeah, so Richo, that's one of my missions for you, mate. Just get you on the fucking gram a bit more and let people hear what you're about. Meatheads for life.
I think somebody who does that stuff pretty well is Bill Sakala, actually, the guy whose website I am writing for. So he, a dietitian and an exercise physiologist, and has great sort of media savvy and has a bit of a profile and knows how to get content out there really well, which is why I write for him rather than just posting something on the Facebook page of my own, because I know it's not going to get seen.
Yeah.
So, and he provides great information and it's well referenced, and he's a genuine expert. And I'll be happy to use that term for him. So that's one source. If we were talking about a source earlier, he's a great start for some people too.
Yeah, and if you find like-minded people.
It just got a bit blurry. Can you just say his name and where to find him again? It just got a bit staticky when you said he's, just for the listeners. And you'll link it as well.
Yep, no problem. So Bill Sakala, that's Sukala, and he's got a website, billsakala.com. It might have a .au, I'm not sure. But yeah, he's a great resource for exercise and nutrition information.
Awesome. Now, we're all about connecting people in this show, Dan. This is the idea of it, is to provide this opportunity, drop the right names and the right resources so that people listening go, hell yeah, instead of following Abdude 9000, we'll go find Bill, you know what I mean? And we'll follow Dan when we can find your publication. And, Richo and Nate, and all of a sudden they're starting to get influenced by less bullshit, more content. And then that might just spur them on to, like, I never got into podcasts until about 2 years ago. And I listened to, because I thought they were like Triple J podcasts. They just replay songs and shit. So then I found one, and then that guy, it wasn't really for me, but he mentioned a guy in the podcast. I thought, okay, well, this guy's not really mine. I'll go listen to him. I was like, fuck, that's a good, I connect there. And then they got some guests on, and some were good, some weren't so good. And it just leads you down the rabbit hole. And if you're following the right stuff, or if you're getting put in front of the right stuff, then that's where your education can really take off, as we said earlier, because then you're finding your way to the right resources or the most relevant to you. And off you go from there. Yeah. Solid.
Absolutely. And that's why having that network of professionals is really useful as well. Like have a physio and a dietitian, and people that you can ask questions of, that you can trust, and do the right thing by your client if you need to refer them.
Exactly. What episode was that, boys? That was about 4 back. We discussed primarily about building that network around you, didn't we? With a physio, an allied health professional, and a dietitian, and a business
network.
Yeah.
I guess, Dan, what's in the pipelines for you? So this PhD said it's going to wrap up in the next sort of 6-ish months. What's on the agenda? What are you hoping to achieve with that, or what are your plans after? What's the next step for you?
Okay. Well, I was doing the PhD for no reason other than I'd known something about the fitness industry, and I had a question and I couldn't find the answer. So that was a good reason to go and spend another 3 years at uni for me. I want to do something with what we've developed. So you guys may not be aware, but earlier this year, actually, we ran an online course for personal trainers that was registered with Fitness Australia. They got CECs for it, and it was a critical thinking course. So it was using fitness specific information and showing people how to a little bit about the scientific method, so they could read a paper and get some ideas about that, ways to search for better information, how to identify experts, how to make a good argument. So they weren't, they weren't making claims that they couldn't back up with evidence, all those sorts of things. So
is that still available, Dan?
Yeah, is that still there?
Yeah, good question. It's not at the moment, just because we had to shut it down to analyze the data. But I've got all the resources, and I will be looking to do something. So whether I post or start to put stuff on social media, I don't know, but I'll be doing something with it, and that should start next year.
Yeah, well, perfect.
The critical thinking and the resources you could provide is excellent, man. Like, that's a massive thing missing from the world in general right now. Like everybody, but definitely in the fitness industry, being able to think on your feet and be a critical thinker, resourcefulness, all that stuff is massive void. So awesome. That's really cool, man.
That's To me, that's the next step after set 3 and 4. And if not, it's the first thing after. I'd love to somehow see that get incorporated in. You can't finish a cert 4 until you've had that.
Stay tuned, brother.
Yeah. So I would love to see that get incorporated into cert 3 and 4 so that you can't actually get out of your cert 4 until you hear that, because
so you can actually
that sounds incredible.
Conversation and
that sounds
thought together.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Well, you'll be glad to know that I've spoken to a couple of people about things like that. The problem is a cert 4 is a cert 4 no matter what the industry is. So there's certain certain outcomes that are going to be consistent across industries. So a lot of the critical thinking stuff, as far as like analyzing information and judging the quality of information, that really doesn't start to come into courses until diploma or degree. So that may not ever come into a cert or in a massive. We might see some basics of it, but it really is something for after that.
I'd love to see. I'd love to see that course come out, and I'd do it in a heartbeat. And I'd love to see all the people that have been around for a while take charge, do it, and then start trying to shut down some of these retards, and making sure that people understand, hey, if they haven't done this, then they can't actually fucking interpret what they're reading properly, and they don't even know how to research properly. So I'd love for it to be like, do you mean if they don't have a set 3 or 4, people don't listen to them? I'd almost love for it to be like, everyone's got a cert 3 and 4 now. Literally everyone has a cert 3 and 4. In fact, I think they give the cert 3 and 4 in the vegan, gluten-free cereal boxes now. But I would love to see this as the next standard. Like, unless people have done this, people just won't even go and talk to them about anything.
Mate, just for the record, my cereal boxes are full fucking carnivore, mate. There's lots of meat and juices and stuff in mine, okay? So they don't get it given away so easy. But in saying that, man, it's definitely something we looked at going to have an add-on modules or add-on cert that goes with it. So, you got your cert 3 and 4. We can't really change that. We can't really influence that drastically. But in order to receive your cert 4, it can be mandatory by the RTO, by the organization, that to get your cert 4, you've actually got to complete this third section, this third component. Okay, so you can complete 3 and 4, but I won't issue it to you under my name until you've also done this. And the reason being is because this is going to enable you to actually go out there and fucking succeed using your cert 3 and 4 as your entry level, rather than going out flash in the pan. 3 months later, you're back waiting tables and the industry sucks and congested and all the other bullshit excuses.
And you've just ruined 200 leads for someone who actually knows what they're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, yep. You've ruined the experience, and it's hard to come back from that. So, no, the good thing is, as Dan said earlier, I'm not sure if it was before you guys come on or not, but there is a bit of groundswell. There is a little bit of things happening behind the scenes, for want of a better term, in the industry that may take 5, 10, 15 years, but we are going to see it. And instead of wiping out other organizations, where the ones that are on it are just going to produce such a better fucking product that when that graduate is out in the industry, they're going to be getting the result that others are trying to achieve, and you'll either keep up or drop off. And the ones dropping off, go back to waiting tables. It was a good crack. You weren't meant for this game.
Awesome.
And it's good, man. That's where we're all at. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Well, when we eventually, when your PhD does go out in publication, we'll definitely make sure to, whatever episode we're up to then, if you guys aren't sick of listening to us by then, we will definitely be mentioning it and dropping it in the reference it up, so everyone can definitely get on board, because that's a page I very much look forward to reading.
Dan, yeah, we'll get Dan back on if you're available at that time. Dan is I'd love to get back on when it does drop, and then we can help people, connect with it and you, and see if we can get that 200 followers up.
Perfect.
Awesome. Anyone else got anything to add today?
No, I'm good. I'm
Absolutely. Yeah, always happy to talk about it. No worries.
Yeah, Dan.
Awesome. All right, man. Hey, Dan, thanks very much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. I know the guys, I got a lot out of this. The boys probably picked up some new stuff as well. And the people listening, for sure, if you got 20 episodes in and you already know this shit, it's just great to hear it from someone who's got the academic and the 22 years of research, et cetera, behind him saying this stuff, that it sort of qualifies a little bit what we've been saying, but also takes it to another level of where you need to be aiming for, what you need to be striving towards, and that is education, knowledge, research, and how to apply that shit, and not become the Instagram rated expert, but actually be a genuine guy or girl who knows their shit on their way to becoming or striving to be an expert.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks so much, Dan, for coming on the show and for trying to change the game for the better. Because I'm definitely not intelligent enough to do that, but you, sir, are. And we definitely thank you for trying to change the game for the better, because it has gone downhill as of the social media era. So thank you for changing it for the better.
All right, guys.
My pleasure. Yeah. And in the meantime, sorry, guys, I just throw it out there to your listeners too. I'm always happy to take questions about anybody and they want to help with that sort of stuff. They can always get in touch. I'm happy to help.
Awesome.
Dan, can we when I get the notes up, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Via email or I don't really want to put your email address in case it gets spam bots finding it. But what is there a way that we can get people in touch with you, or do you have your spam email?
Look, I can. Well, Twitter's a really good way.
Cool.
I often post a lot of sort of educational, sort of PT psychology stuff up on that, so people can always get me there. That's at OzBJ2. Great.
We'll put a link to your Twitter in the show notes.
Okay, cool. And apart from that, I'll give you an email address, Moons, and if anyone wants to get in touch, maybe they can talk to you and you can pass it on.
Same as always, guys, info@51fit.com.au, and we can help facilitate that connection, get you guys in touch. Awesome. Man, episode 20, guys, that's a wrap. I can't believe we're at 20 already, but that's pretty awesome. Dan, I'm stoked that you were part of this one, dude. As usual, if you're hearing this on iTunes, give us a review, get the stars, make it so people can find us and learn some of this shit. If you're watching it on YouTube or you catch a link somewhere, share it, tag people, do all the shit that needs to be done that you're probably doing for your six-pack stud who doesn't know shit, but do it for people who are going to share this and learn something from it. Let's change the game.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Roger. All right, boys, take it easy.
All right, see you soon. Thanks, guys.